DIY.
DIYers, the Clipse, fresh off the #1 hip hop album in the game right now. Let God sort them out. Round of applause for that.
Somebody gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
Beautiful to see it. You love to see it. And a legendary rollout that we haven't seen in years. They are still on the rollout, by the way. They're doing all of these interviews after the project is dropped, and this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it used to be, where you finish your food, finish your breakfast. With that said, they sat down with Effective immediately. Shout out to Gina Views and DJ Head. And, they did a great job of asking questions that a lot of fans wanted to know. I want to center in on this one, though, because I had questions about Malice's choice to not curse on a majority of the project. And in this age where there's a certain, level of vulgarity that's expected with a lot of the projects that drop, it was really refreshing to see Malice not only go this approach, obviously because of, his faith and because of him challenging himself as a lyricist, but for him to do this and still have some of the most standout verses on the project, I think that just says a lot about what is possible in 2025, especially as a veteran in the game. Genevieve asks a very great question about this that I want to go ahead and react to. Peep this out.
Since you stopped cussing, have you found an increase in your vocabulary?
Great question.
Do you know my vocabulary has always been incredible from the beginning? And as far as the cursing, I've never been just a casual curser. I don't think there's a person alive that can out cuss me. But I just choose, I don't, and for me personally, I think it shows a blatant disregard for people who may not want to hear that, out in public. I do think, it's other people around. Some people, it's not just common for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when the situation calls for it, we can have some really interesting communication.
Yeah, shout out to him for saying that. That's
Somebody gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
That's part of what makes hip hop is the authenticity, right? The unfiltered approach that we as artists, we as lyricists, we as rappers, that we take to telling our stories, to speaking like we speak, where we're from, and letting the rest of the world see that unfiltered is part of what makes people fall in love with hip hop and its authenticity. But I understand where he's coming from, because with age, for a lot of us comes perspective and maturity. Because there's been certain times I've been in a barbershop and there's certain songs that come on that I'm like, by myself, play that to the loudest you can. And you start seeing the babies around, you start seeing the kids, and you be like, oh, earmuffs, ooh. Or I got a better one, especially as an artist. You ever been at a dinner party as a rapper, and then the guest or the host says, don't you do music? And then your dumb ass be like, yeah. And they go and find your music on streaming, and it just happens to be the most foul song that you got in your catalog. And then people at the dinner party just sitting there in silence, right? Not that you should be embarrassed about it, because it is you, but I understand it. Plus, I like this approach of, Malice seems to be like somebody that really wants to make sure that his words count. And all these interviews you've been seeing Pusha T kind of lead these conversations. Malice speaks when Malice feels like he needs to say something. And even then, he makes every single word count. I think Pusha T does that, even though he, is speaking the majority of the time. But why would that be any different if that's a representation of you in your art when you're writing your music? So, yeah, it's the older you get as an artist, the more you are aware of where your music may land.
Interesting communication.
Yeah, we can do that.
Exactly.
I didn't even realize. I don't even know what album this is. I just remember hearing when I was a kid that Outkast won an award for having an album that there was no profanity on it.
Oh wow.
Am I making that up? Did that happen, right? That's
I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
I think they have an album with no cussing.
Okay.
Or Andre 3000, somebody. I remember hearing that when I was in elementary. I have never heard my grandfather say a cuss word ever in my life. So when I hear that a person doesn't cuss, like, that's just amazing to me, because we, in casual conversation, we use cuss words as filler words.
Yeah,
so I
they
feel
use
like
cuss words as filler words in rap.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
Something that made me think about immediately is, didn't it make, when Malice did cuss on this project, didn't it make it seem like he meant it even more because of how much he did not cuss? Like, at some point in time, you go through a project and every rapper got their favorite word. What's my favorite word? Why you trying to say it like every rapper got their favorite word? But if you overuse the word, it's no different than a producer overusing a sound. At some point, it just becomes a crutch. At some point, it loses its effectiveness. And, the question then becomes, do you have other ways to express this creative? Are you able to find other ways to find that impact without having to use the in particular words? But that's an interesting answer.
Right.
For talent lacking.
I literally, like, I feel like that's just another skill set. Even though, like, profanity is normalized, when somebody just does not cuss in rap, that's amazing to me, because how much we depend on filler words, not just cuss words, but just filler words, in general.
Right.
There's some acronyms I need y'all to break down.
Yeah, no, these are facts. These are facts. When I'm listening to the Clipse in general, right? What I really appreciate about what they do is that they find words that are uncommon to the ear, especially in hip hop, and they find ways to mesh it together with the things that are common, things that we say every single day, but they'll say it in such a different way. Lady Gaga. It's a playful way to approach it, but it's also a very rhythmic way, and I think that's what really contributes also to the replay value that you get from the music that they do. But shout out to Malice saying that, because I feel like a lot of artists do need to hear that, especially younger artists who are coming up who do use these things as crutches. It ain't, nobody should feel the need to be censored, but damn it, if you can't find your way around other words, maybe it's time to really question how many words you actually know, because there's a lot more ways to say shit than just shit. That being said, let's move on to the next part of this. Brian Z, man, always known for having these amazing breakdowns, did an interview recently when he spoke to the Clipse manager, Steven Victor. And he says Clipse dropped the video for So Be It on June 17th. I don't even feel like it was that long ago. But the song didn't hit DSPs until after they released their new album on 7/11. As some of you may recall, there's like a I call it the Transylvania. It feels like very like vampire-ish. It's a very Transylvania version of So Be It that I had to grow to love, even though this is what I first got introduced to with So Be It. That was not their original plan. To get the backstory, he said, I spoke with Clipse manager Steven Victor. So it turns out Swizz Beatz saved the day. How the hell is that even possible? So here in the thread, it says the original version of So Be It samples Maza Akolu by Saudi legend Talal Mada. Pharrell first heard the song on Swizz Beatz Instagram, according to Pusha T in an interview with MSNBC Ari Melber. Here's where he talks about it.
Driven and very strategic.
Leave it down there below in the comments. Which version do you like now that you've had an opportunity to sit with both of them? I don't know if you updated yours, which, by the way, if you downloaded the album on Apple Music and you still got the other version that Pharrell made as a backup, if you delete the album and then re-download it, you can get this version right here. Shout out to Pusha T. He said that on Twitter. I saw that. Just fun fact.
Working with Pharrell, and how does he bring that material to you?
Man, the story of that song, shout out the power of Instagram and the internet. That song that sample was on Swizz Beatz Instagram page. And Pharrell heard it and just called him like, "What the hell is that? Like, what is that?" And I guess, you know, he sent him the record or whatever it is, and he was like, "I'm making something with that." And, you know, Clipse were the recipients of greatness. But, you know, I think P is always looking for something that sounds futuristic, something that sounds unorthodox, something that just is kind of polarizing. And, you know, when you have like a polarizing start like that, you know, it kind of dictates how hard and how crazy.
I think that's also something that made it surprising for, you know, I'm a huge Neptunes fan, huge Pharrell fan. And so, you know, when you listen to the catalog and you listen to the things that they produce for other people, it's generally original music. It's generally those beautiful seventh chords and all the things that you get sonically from the synthesizers and the pads and just beautiful, lush combinations of sounds. This was interesting, not because they couldn't make darker sounds. They've obviously done it many of times, or Pharrell's done it many of times with Clipse in the past, but it being a sample and it being chopped so fire, like to me, it was a bit of a surprise. Not that I was underestimating Skateboard P, but you know, it was a bit of a surprise, is what I'll say. So the thread goes on to say the original plan was to release the video and the song to DSPs at the same time, but when the clearance process stalled, which I think a lot of us thought it had to be the sample that stalled it, Clipse were forced to pivot, holding back the commercial release and only sharing the video on YouTube and social media, right? Because these are not necessarily, you can make an argument for YouTube being, I guess, for profit, but it's kind of the reasons why I think we got certain songs like 616 in LA last year during the battle only on Instagram, because you're not necessarily monetizing it. You're kind of displaying in a free way what's going on. But it obviously never got to DSPs because of sample clearance of the Al Green record. So with that said, then the rest of the thread goes, we connected with Rock Nation. Talking about Steven said, we connected with Rock Nation and we were like, hey, we still have this issue because we don't have the clearance. What do we do? They considered changing up their rollout planning and releasing a different music video instead. That'd have been crazy, especially with all the work that went into this. And this is still such a fire visual. Like, this still might be one of the best music videos of the year. But, man, having to change that, I mean, it just shows you, to me, it shows you how ready they were to get this to the masses, right? I believe after having it in their possession for at least a year, dealing with the mess with UMG and Def Jam, and you finally in a situation that's like, we about to get this out, we about to have the best rollout, they're already planning this. You trying to tell me a sample finna stop this? Which is another reason all you sample snitchers, shut up. Shut up. I know you want to make content. Slow down, you who sampled it head asses. You might be genuinely affecting the rollouts without even knowing it, even if they don't mention it here. With the sample clearance in limbo, Pharrell produced an alternate version of the song, So Be It Part 2, with different production and no sample in the event the clearance never came. So it's all hands on deck by any means necessary getting this music out, which they did. On the day Let God Sort 'Em Out was due for release, Steven received a call from Swizz Beatz. Swizz asked, why didn't you call me about So Be It? I told him, I did send it. He said, I told him I did send it to you. He said, I didn't realize it was that record. Let me handle it. Handle it? What you mean, Swizz Beatz? What you about to do? As fate would have it, Swizz was scheduled to fly to Saudi Arabia that day. You know, he be traveling the world all the damn time. He be in his painter bag. He be doing all kind of stuff, man. Shout out to Swizz Beatz. He said, I'll connect with the right people in person and get it resolved. Oh, like that? And that's exactly what he did. Swizz Beatz isn't just connected to a handful of people in Saudi Arabia. He's embedded in the country. His creative agency, Good Intentions, is based in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, and he even runs a camel racing team called Saudi Bronx. I was today years old. It didn't come through in time for the album's midnight release on 7/11, but Swizz Beatz stepped in and helped secure the sample clearance. Once they received approval, Roc Nation issued a metadata update to all DSP partners, replacing the alternate version with the original. Because the clearance came too late for production, the original So Be It and Tyler's verse on POV didn't make the first vinyl pressing, but they plan to fix that. Yeah, we'll probably do a round with those included. Man, so it said clearance issues can derail a rollout, but with So Be It, it works to their advantage. Releasing it only on social and YouTube, where consumption and conversation feed each other, helped spark a groundswell of support for the album. You know, I think it worked out for a few different reasons, and one of those is actually here in terms of the conversation that was had, right? So many artists release a project, and in the past, at least the last 7 to 10 years, they've looked for viral moments, viral interviews. They've looked for virality to be the only solution, right? How do I stay in the conversation? A lot of them want to kind of like hold on to this mysterious type of brand, but at the same time stay in the conversation. So they figure out excuses to be in the conversation. In this situation, I don't call it a mistake, but a change in plans actually becomes a conversation that keeps the conversation of the album fresh in the minds of consumers. So now when you're seeing people like, what happened to So Be It Part 1? I heard So Be It Part 2 gonna have Jay-Z on it. What if it has Jay-Z and Kendrick? What if it... That conversation helped to promote and to support the promotion of the album. So that worked out. But it was such a natural way that it happened. Also, too, it gives people an opportunity to fall in love with two versions of the record. There used to be a time where you heard a song and you got the vampire remix, whatever the hell that means. You got the late night vampire remix. You got this remix, and you had all these different remixes that were all supported by the label. But once again, it's things that keep the music in the conversation, because eventually all roads lead back to the original record. This is, to me, another great example of how that works out. But man, shout out Clipse. I think they're doing it right, bro. They've set such an amazing example on how to not only create a product that stands out from everybody else without having to do what everybody else does, but also how to age gracefully in a genre that has had a very complicated relationship with older rappers and a conversation around older rappers. You know, not once did I think about this rollout, did I think about the conversation about their music and say to myself, you know, that's pretty good for somebody there. Hey, that never crossed my mind. The thing that I thought about was how fresh the ideas all sounded and how different from everybody else they sounded. And I imagine in this next shift that hip hop is going through, that is going to be very important. It is not about trying to recapture these moments. It is about creating new moments that feel so organic at their foundation. Moments that are so attached and married to a quality product. And that quality product coming into maybe, you know, multiple colorways, the way that the Clipse are doing their vinyl. They got like, I already seen probably 8 different versions of their vinyl for this project. I've seen, they even got Coca-Cola hats that just says Clipse and let God sort them out at the bottom. It is the gift that keeps giving. And what happens is once you get motion, once you create this motion, other people and other entities start moving with you. So because of all the conversation, who knows all the unplanned opportunities that have come on their doorstep simply because if you are a hip hop head, a hip hop fan, this is impossible to ignore unless you just don't love hip hop. DIYers, what are you thinking about those stories that we shared here? Are you still playing the album? You still should be. This is timeless music. I'm really wondering what it's going to look like around Grammy season when you got GNX and Let God Sort Them Out, and whatever other projects may fall into that shit. Maybe even the Tyler project too. What are your thoughts on that, DIYers? Let me know what you're thinking.